Welcome to everyone around the world and to all my subscribers. I've decided to remake the video that I did the other day. Oh, welcome, John Hughes. I want to make it much shorter. It ended up being very long, so I'm going to cut a few things out of it that I don't think are necessary, change the music, and I'm further away from my microphone device this time because I was getting some interference. I kind of think, and I'll mention it, a couple days ago, it's like something happened to my account or channel or something, because every single live stream I do has like a hiccup, like a minute in, like a minute in, you'll notice in all my recent videos it like does this weird blurb where it like pauses and then repeats the last thing I said, and I think it deletes like 2 seconds of speech. So it's this weird little glitch in all my live streams now, and some of the audio has been like garbled. So it's kind of irritating. I don't know if it's because I happen to be sitting closer recently in my last few videos, so I just wanted to mention that. Hopefully somebody has been tinkering with my account or something. But anyways, I'm further away. Hopefully the audio is clear, and I have to plow through this because I have to go and do something important after. So I believe that the Hebrew year 5782 is the final year, and I'll show some very powerful pieces of proof that will support that. And like the title says, I want to share my discovery that I just made yesterday regarding 888 days in Passover. Okay, so, but before I do that, I have to lay the foundation so that you can understand why that has any relevance. Okay, so it all comes down to the final day of Passover that just happened, right? And the final day of Passover is very important and symbolic. Okay, it's even linked to the coming of Messiah. Okay, so from the final day of Passover that just happened, if you're looking forward into the future, there is exactly 888 days till the end of 5782. I calculated that. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Methodically went through, double checked. It's exactly 888 days. Okay? That is highly significant when you understand that 5782, the end of 5782, is the end. Okay? So that's why I have to lay the foundation now. We first look in the prophecy of Daniel. And I know I've talked about this in other videos, but I'm going to bring all the facts here together, all the pieces of proof together here, right? So, in the prophecy of Daniel, it's foretold that Israel would fall, the temple would fall, be desolation, the people would be scattered, and then at some point an abomination would be built on the Temple Mount, the holy place. Okay? Daniel asked the angel, how long is it till the end of these wonders? And the angel tells him 1260 days. And if we take the days as years, which a lot of other people, Jew and Christian alike, are comfortable doing, um, that is 1260 years. Now, long story short, I'm trying to make this video shorter, right? All the Roman rulers who built statues in the Jewish temple, that doesn't qualify as the abomination. Yes, it's abominable, but there was one that was much worse, much more significant. The entire temple, after being stripped down, destroyed, made bare to its foundation, the Dome of the Rock was built on it in 688 AD. Okay? This religion directly opposes Judaism and Christianity, okay, as infidels. And it was built right upon the Temple Mount. That is the greatest abomination, okay? And I could have elaborated on all of that, but I'm not going to, right? So from 688 AD, if we add 1260 years, we can then find out when is the end of these wonders. And if you add that to 688, you come to 1948 AD, which is the exact year when the Jews got Israel back from Islam. They got Israel back. It was the rebirth of Israel. Okay, this is highly significant. That is not a coincidence. That is the only perfect fit for the numbers I've ever heard from all the countless suggestions from around the world for the last like thousands of years. Everybody's had theories. None of them fit with the numbers. None of them can make sense. Why? Because the angel tells Daniel in the messages from God that seal up the vision, the vision of this prophecy, right? Seal up these words. They will only be able to be understood in the final days. Okay? That's not the exact wording of it, but that's the essence of it. Okay? Nobody would be able to understand it or crack the puzzle until the end times actually approached. Okay, and it's because of 1948. If you lived before 1948, you would never see the fulfillment, the rebirth of Israel, and you would never therefore be able to calculate 1260, Dome of the Rock, blah blah blah, right? So it would have to be after 1948 for you to even be able to conceive of that. Okay, so that makes good sense there. Okay, but Daniel's prophecy says that 1260 is not the end. There's another 75 years that takes it to 1335, which he says is the end of days. He says, "Blessed is he who makes it to the 1335. You go on to your lot at the end of days." Now, the term end of days occurs very infrequently in the Bible, maybe a couple times. I did a study where I searched for final days, latter days, end times, latter times, you know what I mean? Everything you could think of. And there's not that many verses in there, just like half a dozen to a dozen, if that, okay? So the fact that Daniel is specifying here, this tells us that that is the end, okay? The 1335. God gave us numbers. He gave us a calculation. It should not be forbidden to calculate this. You're just unable to calculate it until you're in the end days, because that's when the vision was sealed up for, okay? Since we're in the end days, we're able to solve it, okay? So if you take 1948, the rebirth of Israel, and you add 75 years, you come to 2023. Okay, now keep in mind, this is Gregorian calendar. The Bible doesn't work by that. It works by the Hebrew calendar. Okay, now on the Hebrew calendar, 2008, it's confusing, right? The Hebrew calendar is not always 365 days. Okay, Gregorian is. Okay, the Hebrew calendar, some years are 355 days, some are 380 something days. Okay, it fluctuates. The new year starts different each year on the Hebrew calendar, so it doesn't always match up. So loosely speaking, 2023 is 5783, and 2022 is 5782. Okay, loosely speaking, for the sake of simplicity. Okay, now, so more importantly, what I'm getting to, more importantly, you should be looking at the Hebrew year. So it's the end of 5782. And why do I say that? Okay, let's look at the second piece of proof. That's the prophecy of Daniel. That's astounding evidence, right? It's not standalone, utter proof, but it's some of the best proof out there to make sense of Daniel's prophecy. So let's look at the second piece of evidence, like I said. Second piece of evidence. In the Hebrew calendar, right, you have an AC calendar, which is called after creation. So it takes the creation of Adam as year zero. Okay? This makes perfect logical sense. Okay? Now, Abraham of the Bible was born 1948 AC. Israel came from the loins of Abraham. Abraham represents Israel. Okay, he was the forefather, the progenitor of Israel. Okay, so Abraham being born in 1948 AC is an obvious parallel to Israel being reborn in 1948 AD. And the fact that these are two totally separate, unrelated calendars is astounding. AC calendar is based on, like, Adam's birth, like around 4000 BC, as being taken as zero. Gregorian is not based on that. It's completely unrelated, right? It calls the center zero and it counts into the AD and into the BC to infinity. They're completely unrelated. So for the fact that those two numbers alone are parallel is striking, but it gets even better because in order to prove 2022, 2023 as being the end, I wanted to find more evidence in the Bible if there is any. So when I looked at the AC calendar, I found the following. In the Bible, if you search for the number 75, you will not find many occurrences in the Bible. 75 isn't spoken of often. Also, if you look at the life of Abraham in the Bible, there are not many instances where it says Abraham was this many years old when some special event happened. It happens a few times, but it doesn't happen all the time. Okay? But one of the times it mentions his age and an important event was when he was 75 years old. So that verse struck out at me. So I read the verse, and it says basically when Abraham was 75 years old, excuse me, God came to him and took him out of Babylon. And it says that Abraham left Haran. Okay? So again, Abraham's born 1948. Okay? And in 2023 AC, Abraham is leaving Babylon, going to the promised land. God has appeared to him, come to him, and taken him out. This is a striking parallel again. So this is further concreting in the proof here. Okay? This is more than just suggestive proof. This is starting to look like, yeah. You know what I mean? All of this is in the Bible for a reason. The fact that the 75 is in there, the fact that it's 2023. And if you're a Christian and you look at Book of Revelation, it says that in the end days you're going to have the mystery Babylon, right? Which is going to be a city that rules over the earth, but it's very mysterious. And people have spent thousands of years speculating who and what it is, and I don't think anybody can truly identify it. Who really cares right now? But there's going to be this mystery Babylon. But the fact is, symbolically, all the heathen world, or all the sinful world, to be symbolized as Babylon. You know what I mean? Or likewise even Sodom. You know what I mean? As like a metaphor. So if the world of sin represents Babylon, or is represented as Babylon, we know in the end days, whether you're Jew or Christian, we both believe that God and the Messiah come here. They, do the great war against Gog Magog, right? They punish the wicked, they judge everybody, they redeem the righteous. And, some people believe you go to paradise, some believe you stay and you go on a new earth, some believe you go to the heavens. Whatever it is you believe, it doesn't contradict the storyline here, right? So we can just simplify all our different beliefs as you're going on to a greener pasture, okay? So we all believe that. Jew, Christian, most denominations all will agree on that. Okay, so that's what happens at the end times. God comes and takes us to the new greener pasture, wherever it might be. Okay, so let me just regain my train of thought here. At Abraham, 2023. Yes, Babylon. Okay, so in 2023 AD, we're going to be taken out of Babylon. Just like Abraham was taken out of Babylon in 2023 AC. You see my point? This can't be a coincidence, right? Cannot be a coincidence. Mystery Babylon's even in the book of Revelation, right? It just adds to all the depth of concreting this in. Okay? Those things will happen. So it's an undeniable parallel, striking parallel to the life of Abraham. Okay? Abraham, again, is very important throughout the New Testament, even in Christianity. He's the forefather of the blessing, the promise to the Gentiles and to the world. Okay, so yeah, it's definitely 100% relevant. Okay, so those are the two pieces of proof. And let's make sure I'm covering all my bases, because I didn't use a script. Oh yes, I forgot this in the last video I made. So I'm remaking it. In Revelation 12, if you're a Christian, it talks about, in Revelations it talks about the period of 3.5. A lot of Christians incorrectly think that there's going to be 3.5 years at the end days when the beast kingdom rules. But it doesn't actually say that. If you read the Old Testament and the New Testament, you will understand, because the Old Testament has tons of prophecy on the end days. It talks about all the same things as Revelations, right? Pretty much every single thing is there in basic elements, right? Gog Magog surrounding Israel, fire coming down from the sky, and all that there, right? So, one sec, I'll take a sip of my coffee. If you look, being realistic, combine the Old Testament, because it's not wrong, combine the Old Testament prophecy with the New Testament prophecy, what does it show you? It shows you for a period of 3.5 times, which is 1,260 years. Okay? For 1,206, because a time biblically, that's the code. That's the key that you needed to crack the puzzle of Daniel's prophecy. You had to decode it with math. A time is equal to 360 years. Okay? I'm not the only person to suggest that. It fits perfectly, right? Absolutely beautifully. It's mathematic, it's geometry, it's everything. Okay, so 3.5 times is 1,260 years. How can I prove my little number theory here? Well, look at the Old Testament. Like I'm saying, the Old Testament says that Gog, Magog, and all them would surround Israel, Jerusalem, and yada yada in the end days, right? And that God and the Messiah would come down and do battle with them, right? We know that they would rule over. The nations would trample Israel. This is Old Testament prophecy for a period of time. I don't know offhand. It'd be great if it does, but I don't know offhand if the Old Testament says it's 3.5 times or 1,260 years. I'm suggesting Daniel's prophecy says that, because the 1,260 is paralleled in Revelations 12. In Revelations 12, it says when Jesus died and ascended, for 1,260 years, the dragon would pursue Israel and the woman across the earth, the church, Christians, whatever, the Jews and the Gentiles, the believers, okay, for 1,260 years. We know elsewhere in Revelations, He pursued her with floods from her mouth, from its mouth, right? So he's chasing after the believers. Okay, we know elsewhere in Revelation and throughout the New Testament, right, that when the end days come, we're going to have all this adversity and the nations are going to mount up for war against Israel. We know about the battles of Gog and Magog. We know about that. It's in the Old and the New Testament. So what you can understand is that there's going to be a period of 1260 years, which is 3.5 times. So the New Testament and Revelation agrees with the Old Testament prophecy. Okay, so that period of 3.5 times of the beast kingdom started in 688 AD and will end, okay, 2022, when 2022 ends at the dawn of 2023. Okay, well, 5782 and the dawn of 5783, truly speaking. Okay, that's the significance. During that time, the nations would surround Israel and all of that there. Sorry, the 1260 ended in 1948. Let me get things straight. Okay, in 1948. That's why the beast kingdom's power, Islam, ended in 1948 because the Jews regained Israel. Okay, that's proof of this prophecy being fulfilled. Further proof is you look back in those 1260 years, what did you see? The fulfillment of Daniel's and the Old Testament prophecies. Israel going desolate, the people being scattered, okay? People, foreign people invading, taking them over tyrannically, putting them to death, enslaving them, and all of that there, right? It all came true, and the nations truly did surround Israel and mount up around Israel. It's not the Battle of Gog Magog. Don't get mixed up. People have gotten mixed up. So, all of that was fulfilled. So in 1948, that came to an end. Their tyrannical rule over the Holy Land and most other places came to an end around 1948. We also had the Great World Wars then, which put to end a lot of tyranny around the world. Tyranny. Okay, so after then, and let me throw this in too. In Judaism, which doesn't believe Christianity, the rabbis in Judaism are quoting old prophecies that rabbis have made, and they're giving, modern predictions and prophecies, saying that we know spiritually that there's going to be between 70 and 75 years prophetically between the rebirth of Israel and the coming of Messiah. This is what they say. Got nothing to do with Jesus, Christianity. They don't believe what I believe. This is what they say. So they're being led by God and the Holy Spirit to perceive there's only 70 to 75 years, basically a type of generation after the rebirth of Israel. Rabbis made these prophecies before Israel was ever reborn, before 1948, right? Like a couple hundred years ago, these prophecies are being made. Okay, so it's in their Jewish scriptures and all that rabbinical writings. So they were aware of this reality as well, and this reality is coming true. So when Israel was reborn in 1948, like the birth of Abraham, okay, we had 75 years, okay, until the end. So Revelations 12, the 1260-year period where the dragon was pursuing Israel and the woman, that was already fulfilled. It ended 1948. We know from the prophecy of Daniel that what happens? Remember he talks about the statue, and then you have the final beast was greater and unlike all the ones before it. People always say that the final beast is Rome, but they forget that verse. It says it's not like the ones before it. Rome was basically a duplicate of Greece in culture, religion, everything. The people, everything was the same. Okay, so how could Rome be different? Rome was as part of Greece, as Greco-Roman rule. Okay, but besides that, I want to draw attention to the fact that the final beast has this mysterious end to it, where the toes are spoken about. Okay, that shows you proof of what I'm talking about. 1948, the 3.5 times ended, but we're in the toes. You see what I mean? We're in the toes. The tares are mixed with the clay and all that. That's the final period that we're in. The 75-year add-on is like the little toes, okay, on Daniel's prophecy. So that's why, because Christians would be saying, oh, well, no, the beast kingdom is supposed to be 3.5 years. Well, it doesn't say that anywhere in Revelations. It uses 42 months, 1260 years, 3.5 times, right? Process all those together, okay, in combination with the prophecy of Daniel. That's how you crack the code, the puzzle. A time is 360, okay? So anyways, all of that was fulfilled, okay? And like I said, the tyranny and the rule of Islam diminished after 1948. I'm not trying to say they are the tares, right? But the tares and the clay and the adversity and the wars that we would see in the end, we can see that with ISIS and the terrorist groups, which are fulfilling biblical prophecy, beheading the saints, the Jews, the Christians, and exerting their rule tyrannically and enslaving them, right? So that's further fulfillment of it, right? So we're not looking for a 3.5 year period at the end with a beast kingdom to rule. And I just want to point out the following, because most Christians are not aware of this. Or if they hear it, it just floats in one ear and out the other. It did to me as well. But then I realized, like today, right? Revelation 17, verse 16, right? It says, "And the 10 horns that thou did see upon the beast, okay, these shall hate the whore Babylon, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and shall burn her in fire." Everybody conflagrates, like lumps together the whore Babylon in the end days as the beast kingdom, right? And they lump her in with the beast. The Revelation's the beast, who is Satan, right? In truth. And most churches don't even see that, right? They're not the same. They're not the same. They oppose the mystery Babylon. So the mystery Babylon is just going to have to remain mysterious until it's just a lot more evident, okay? But all the evidence shows that the beast kingdom that Daniel and John both saw was Islam, which literally fulfilled everything. When Islam took over the Holy Land, I'll tell you what they did right now, besides chopping off the heads of everybody and blah, 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 and enslaving them and all of that, fulfilling the prophecy. Okay, they surrounded it in encampments, just like Jesus foretold. Okay, he says, beware of the day when you see the enemy surrounding Jerusalem, pitching up tents and all of that. That was fulfilled. The Jews tried to flee on the Sabbath. They were hunted down like animals and killed. Okay, all the Jewish and the Christian women who had to breastfeed in those days, woe to them, because they were in trouble. You know what I mean? And all that happened. The first caliph installed a currency, right, that had the Bismillah on it. And the Bismillah, when you write it out in Arabic, is an exact match to the Greek way of writing 600, 60, and 6. Because in Greek, which is what John wrote, he didn't write 3 6s. He wrote 3 Greek symbols, 600, 60, and 6. That's how Greek numerics works, right? So that's what a lot of Christians don't know. So the Bismillah, the 666 that John saw, was on this currency. You couldn't buy or sell without it. That's literally history. Okay, most people aren't aware of this. If you didn't use it, you tried to use it. If you didn't convert to Islam, you had your head cut off. That is what Revelation's foretold. That's what Jesus warned us about. And he said that after these things, the end isn't yet. That's not the end, right? Christians always lump that in at the end time. That's not the end times. They lump the rapture in with it. They get so mixed up. All that's history. That was all fulfilled way back then when Islam took over. Okay, the Dome of the Rock was when they stamped it. What did Jesus say? He quoted Daniel and said, you're going to be, I can't remember his exact words, but beware, you're going to see the day when the abomination's standing in the holy place. Let it not be, right? The time period he was speaking of, the encampment surrounding, was around 614 or whatever it was, like the siege of Jerusalem, when they invaded and took over. A couple decades later, they built their Dome of the Rock on the most holy place on this planet, the Temple Mount, and then continued their tyrannical rule for 1260 years. You see what I mean? Perfect fulfillment. Perfect fulfillment. So what are we going to see in the end days? The book of Revelation says that for 1,000 years, Satan, who is the beast, was imprisoned in the abyss, and that when the 1,000 years are finished, he will rise up out of the abyss. The churches wrongly teach there's 2 Armageddons separated by a period of 1,000 years. Everything's duplicated. I don't want to waste time on all that there, right? But no, it's not. The best way to prove this is the 2 witnesses. The 2 witnesses are killed by the beast who rises out of the pit. He rises out of the pit to kill them and then goes off to fight Jesus. That's just a fact of what happens, right? That's just a fact of what happens. So if the beast comes out of the pit after the 1,000 years and then kills the 2 witnesses, okay, and the 2 witnesses have been plaguing the earth for the final 3.5 years before the Armageddon, that proves to you that the imprisonment of 1,000 years is before the coming end right now. It's not way off in the future after another 1,000 years. The church has got it mixed up. Okay, the proof is in the pudding. Satan is released from the pit. The first thing he does is kill the 2 witnesses who are plaguing the earth and his kingdom. Okay, so he kills them. They're dead 3.5 days. They resurrect on the final day. The final day. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. And that means that Satan was imprisoned, minus 1,000 years from whenever it was. You know, it's not my fault people haven't been taught that, but that's what fits with the scripture, so that's what's going to happen. Okay, so when the beast rises from the pit, it's going to be 3 days before the end. So we're not going to see Satan on this earth until 3 days before the end. He's going to send his Antichrist, his false prophet, as a representative first. And the representative will come here and make an idol of the beast himself, Satan, and force people to worship it. Okay? All that's going to come. And this guy, the Antichrist, is going to pose as Messiah God. He's going to claim to be just like a Trinitarian Jesus, a man who is also God. Okay? And he's going to say, worship me because I am God. Okay? And he's going to appear before Satan does. Okay? He's going to make everybody bow to Satan and take his name. And all. This is what's going to happen, but it's not in 3.5 years. We're already in the final 3.5 years. There's only like 2 years left or whatever at most. So it's not possible. We're just in the toes right now. That's absolutely it. And like I pointed out, the whore of Babylon is hated by the beast kingdom. So they're two separate things. What we're truly in right now is the Babylon kingdom. That's what we're truly in. That's why we're going to be pulled out of Babylon. The beast kingdom died off. Its 1260 years is over. We're just the little toes or whatever are trying to fight. And that's about it. They can't regain dominance. Why? Because their time was 3.5 times. They had their time. They're not going to get it again, right? So the next piece of proof is, so I covered Revelations now. So Daniel's prophecy, the AC calendar in 2023, and then I talked about the period of 1260, the beast kingdom, all that there, right? So all of that ties together. Now I'm going to tie in my gematria finding that I made. Let me check my time. I gotta speed things up. I did a study in gematria using Hebrew gematria, and all that googly nonsense that you find on the internet, the real deal. I used a Hebrew program where it searches the Tanakh and it takes every data, lines up all the letters of the Tanakh with no spaces, adds up the value as it scans down, it finds the value that you looked for, whatever it might be, and then it goes snip, snip, takes it out and displays it in a list of matches for you. Okay, that's how it searches the Tanakh, right, for gematria matches. So you get verses and this and that there, right, or near complete verses. And it's actually astounding how few results you get because the program's trying to find significant things, you know what I mean? Not, well, it finds everything, but it's not as much as people would think. When I search for these years, which is I'm going to say, I search for 5778 all the way up to 5783, because I figured, okay, if 2022, 2023 is real, then it would be encoded further in the Bible probably, right? So I searched for that in the gematria program, and there weren't that many matches for all those years, right? The matches that were there were highly significant. Okay, for 5778, it said that there would be early rains coming to Israel. The rabbis in Israel were celebrating in the year 5778, and they themselves were saying that prophecies have been fulfilled because the early rains have come. That's the first sign that this was a good find, right? I'm not going to read all the results for all those years, right? But they're all important and significant results. But for 5782, the match is from Ezekiel 37:12. This sealed it in for me. This proved it for me. Okay, Ezekiel 37:12 is one of the only resurrection verses in the Old Testament. There's only a couple. And I believe this is the penultimate verse. So the following words that I'm going to read, even though they've been rendered into English, okay, through translation program, the Hebrew, which is printed on my screen as well here, okay, so I made a video about this. I took off my channel, but I don't know why. Must have been by accident. But I got the Hebrew here as well, right? When you read the Hebrew, it adds up to 5782. And it's the following. And I said unto them, Thus saith the Lord Hashem, Behold, I have opened your graveyards, and I have brought you up from your graves with me, and brought you with me. So that's the match for 5782, which is what I'm saying is the end time. So this bolsters that claim. This is the one and only, well, the penultimate resurrection verse. And look what it says. It talks about God coming to Israel, coming to the people, and what? Brought you up from your graves, the resurrection which happens on the final day, right? And brought you with me. What was I talking about earlier? God came to Abraham and took him out of Babylon. 2023, God's going to come to us and take us out of Babylon, right? proof of this, 5782. Boom. God comes, resurrects us, and takes us out of Babylon. There you go. And where are we going? The promised land. Abraham left Babylon to go to the promised land. Right? And the end day comes, we're all being taken out of this old earth and being taken to the promised land, the new earth, or the paradise, wherever you want to perceive it to be. Okay, so that's pretty striking. But that's not the only match I got for 5782. For 5782 also, from Ezekiel 38 verse 8, which is just the next chapter, and they don't have chapters in the Tanakh, it's just one big stream of information, right, for each book. So in Ezekiel 38 8, so this is just a tiny bit down from the discovery I just showed, right? Same year, 5782, it says, his function at the end of the years will come to a land that is dazzled by a sword, gathered from many nations on the mountains of Israel. Further proof, right? His function, it's alluding to the Messiah and God coming. His function at the end of the years. I mean, come on, right? At the end of the years, will come to a land, Israel, is dazzled by a sword. Gog Magog, the end times. In the final years, what's going to happen? Gog Magog are going to surround Israel. It's going to be under siege again, right? And it says gathered from many nations. Further confirmation, right? On the mountains of Israel, further confirmation. So that's even more proof, right? That God has included this in the Bible for us. And then, I think there was another one. Okay. So why do I say it's the end of 5782 and not the start of 5782? The only reason I think it's the end of 5782 is the following, besides the 2023 thing. The match for 5783 is from 2 Chronicles 23:13, and it says, oh, sorry, not that one, the other one. It is, for 5783 is from 2 Kings chapter 20 verse 5, and it says, I heard your prayer, I saw your tears, I will heal you on the third day. This is an obvious allusion to the resurrection, to the symbolism of Jonah, that Jesus spoke about. The only sign I'm going to give you, stiff-necked people, is the sign of Jonah. After 3 days, the Son of Man will rise from the dead. We know that 2 witnesses will be dead 3 days and then rise from the dead during the resurrection on the final day. So when you get this here, combined with all the other evidence I just gave, that's further concreting this. Okay? I heard your prayer, I saw your tears, I will heal you on the third day. So that's 5783. So if we get the resurrection being spoken about directly in 5782, and then strongly alluded to in 5783, that shows you that the end day must be at the end of 5782, just using logic, right? So that's my reasoning for that, combined with the 2023 and everything from Daniel and Abraham's life. So that's why I strongly believe there's biblical proof that the end of 5782 will be the end, okay? And the rabbinical prophecies that confirm it as well. In 57, I'll read the last one because it's nice later. In 5780, which is the year we're in now, which ends sometime in September, so we still have some months for things to happen, right? But for 5780, from Kings 3:6, the match is, your servant David my father. Remember, Messiah is the son of David, the seed of David, right? The offspring of David. That's who Messiah is. That's what Jesus said of himself, right? It says, your servant David my father is a great benefactor, when he went before you in truth and in righteousness, and served the hearts of your people, and saved him this great kindness, and gave him a son who sat in his throne today. That's pretty significant, right? And like I said, use this program and I searched these numbers. I didn't get huge streams of meaningless jargon, loads of stupid matches. There were a few, basically speaking, and these are highly significant, and they all show a pattern. The blessed rains coming early first, and things progressing, like 5779 talks about Israel, the Jews coming to Israel and inheriting their land. I'll read that one too, whatever, why not, right? So this blatantly says that the Messiah is going to sit on his throne. Doesn't mean on earth necessarily, who knows. The rabbis say that the messianic revealment process is a period of like 7 years or something, right? And the whole thing will take longer. right? So he could come at any time during that time, but it's fair to say that this is the year of Messiah, or the Messianic process, right? And the Torah codes is an example of that. Since 5778, which was the start of the 7 years, essentially, roughly speaking, it's the Messianic years, right? So at any time, Messiah could come. Something might make him come a little sooner or a little later. This is how the rabbis look at it, right? And I agree. So maybe Messiah will come here and sit on his throne in 5780, but I don't think so based upon all the other results in the matches. I think either in the heavens he will be, or he'll be taking position, or this is an open possibility. If the earth merits it, maybe he will come sooner and do that. So, and it's after that one where it talks about Messiah sitting on his throne. The next one is the one I read where it says his function at the end of years is to come to a land dazzled by a sword, right? And so in 5779, Deuteronomy 3:20, and ye shall inherit the land which the Lord your God has given them in the pass of the Jordan, and ye shall return every man to his inheritance. I'm going to try and save some time here, speak quickly. We know that Trump approved Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Um, he's not the spokesman for Earth and all that, though. I'm all for Trump. I'm not being disrespectful, but he is just the president of another country, right? It takes like a global recognition before it's actually logged in as, yeah, okay, Jerusalem's the capital, you know what I mean? But all that was changing. He triggered that change like a domino effect, and all that was taking place in 2018, 2019. Again, we should be looking at Hebrew calendar years, not Gregorian, right? But for simplicity's sake. So in 5779, it is true that the Jews start coming to Israel, okay, for that very purpose. I've been following Jewish blogs, lectures, everything for years now, and I know that for the last few years, all the rabbis, the biggest rabbis out there, are telling people, get to Israel now. A lot of them say, oh, it's too late now. We've been telling you for years. Now it's harder for you to come in. So I know that it's true that in that year, especially, there were lots of Jews migrating to Israel because they believe it's the end times. They're getting ready, right? That's like their command. They have to return back home, right? So all of these things are coming true. And the final one, 5783, 2 Chronicles 23:13, and behold, the king stood on his pillar in the foyer, and the ministers and the trumpets of the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced. So this shows the new earth has been settled. The king is here. The temple's here. He's reigning, celebrating. Everybody's happy, right? That's 5783. Okay, right after the resurrection. So that's all the evidence. The last piece of evidence that I'll mention is that star that was the new star that was supposed to come. All the rabbis, again, not believing in Jesus or Christianity, they all came to the conclusion, being led by the Spirit of God, saying that this birth of a new star in 2022 or 2023 will herald the coming of Messiah. They said that. Very few Christians believe that. I believed it because it fits perfectly in with everything I just talked about, right? We know as Christians that Messiah is going to come with a star. Revelation says that many stars will be coming doing different things, right? Jesus says, I come as the morning star, wink, wink, right? Kind of giving you a strong hint when the morning star rises and this and that there. I am the morning star. When does the morning star rise? When do you see it? Hint, right? At a certain time of day, right? So anyways, and it's when the darkness is going down and the light is coming up. That's when you see the morning star. So Jews and Christians believe we're going to have a period of a few days, some say 3, I think it's around 3 at the end days of darkness, because the pit opens and Satan is released, and we know that he kills the 2 witnesses immediately and then goes off to fight Messiah. Since the 2 witnesses are dead for 3 days, those are the 3 days of darkness, right? The Messiah comes like the morning star, obviously like blazing light, okay? And that's going to put an end to the darkness, right? So got a lot to cover really quickly. Let me just regain my train of thought real quick. Pause for a second. Because I don't have a script doing this. All from memory. But let me bring it back to the 888 days, right? But now you can truly fathom, right, why 888 days until the end of 572 is important. From the last day of Passover, like the Jews say, that's significant of, symbolizing the Messiah, the coming of Messiah, the final day of Passover, the redemption, and all of that there. So if you're on the last day, of Passover this year and you look forward, there's exactly 888 days until the end of 5782. We know that 8 is the symbol of rebirth because 6 is preparation, 7th is rest, 8th is where the cycle restarts. You have 6 days. You have, you know, the 7-year cycles with Sabbaths and Sabbaths of the land and what do you call them, Jubilees, right? Then you have millennia. A day with the Lord is like 1,000 years and vice versa, right? So 6 days you work, 1 day you rest, then you work as a mortal for 6,000 years and you rest for 1,000 years. Same with the earth. You work for 6,000, then you rest for 1,000. That's what it is. So the 8th is the rebirth where the cycle restarts, the new earth. Okay, so when you have 888, that's what it symbolizes. You know what I mean? The rebirth. There you go. So that's why you're looking forward from the final day of Passover. What's the whole point of the Passover? Being taken out of Egypt, just like you're being taken out of Babylon. Where did they go from Egypt? Into the promised land. Thank you. Right? So it's all connected. So on the final day of Passover, you're looking for your redemption to be taken out into the promised land from this heathen land. That's the whole point of it. Right? And you're looking forward, and if God was to speak truth to you in your ear, he would say, from this point onwards, there's 888 days until the end. And you would probably say, wow, that sounds like a highly significant and symbolic number, God. And you would say, well, you betcha. You know what I mean? You betcha. That's what I was talking about. Now I remember my train of thought. The star. I'm happy I saved it for last this time. Okay, so originally the story came out in 2016, 2017 that this star would be seen right in the sky, 2022, 2023. The whole world could see it. You can see it with your own eyes. It might even be as bright as a little tiny sun, right? Potentially. Okay? All of social media got hyped up, and a lot of people started talking about it being a sign of the coming of Jesus. Even the rabbis in Judaism were saying this is a sign of Messiah, right? Like I was saying, God led them, the Holy Spirit led them to perceive that this is a sign of the coming of Messiah, right? The prophecy of Balaam where he says, I see a star rising in Jacob, whatever it is, right? So, the star of Jacob. So, the Jews were believing that, and the Christians were believing that. I was pushing that out there and talking about it in the videos that I did about that, because I think that's an obvious sign, right? That was 2016, 2017, right? So much hype was created on social media. Everybody was talking about it, okay? That in like 2017 and early 2018, all these news reports started coming out that were like, oh, no, the scientists got one calculation wrong, and it's actually, they were a bit off, right? I read all about it. And all these articles were saying that, oh, you got all excited for nothing, there's nothing to see, you're not going to see it. And it's very disheartening, right? I'm like, well, come on, you know, inside I'm being inspired to know and believe that no, this is going to happen. We are going to see it. I mean, it doesn't really have to. You know, everything I talked about is still true, anyways. You know, I mean, this is just like the cherry on top. But I just had this gumption that it was real. So I did some quick research and I found on Harvard's own site, okay, like their academic site, where they display all their scientific studies. A study done in July and published July 2018, so after the original hype articles, and then after the negative articles denouncing it as fake news or a disappointment, I found this Harvard study, and the opening line is talking about that the findings showed that this event, KIC, whatever the long number is, that this celestial event will in fact occur. It's not like it's going to magically not happen. And they showed the values, right, for its date of occurrence, and it said 2022.2 with a variance plus or minus 0.7, which means it could be 2022.2, right, plus 0.7, which would be 22.9, which still works in favor with everything I've talked about, or it could be minus 0.7. And in either case, it still works with everything. It's not like they were years off or anything, you know what I mean? So I don't know why all those, it's just, you know, it's just the forces of darkness. They saw the whole world celebrating something positive, that the Messiah could come, Jew and Christian. They saw everybody, possibly reforming and trying hard to better themselves. So the forces of darkness, however you perceive it to work, they cause this to try and make it go poo-poo away, you know what I mean? But the reality is, the facts, it's still going to happen, right? It's still going to happen. and it could very well be the sign. When we see this thing, depending how bright it gets, if it shines out there like a bright star, it might be that morning star that we see. You know what I mean? Or it's just connected to it. It's very, very interesting to think about. Okay, but it's not a coincidence that there's exactly 888 days. I spent ages going through the Hebrew calendar, verifying it, double checking, making sure it's exactly 888 days. Okay, it's 800 as of the 22nd yesterday, counting the start of the day. There were 883 days until the end of 5782. And when I opened up the Hebrew calendar and I noticed how the date Pesach was on, I realized, oh, that's precise. And I counted the blocks. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it was proven. If you're on the final day of Passover, like I said 3 times now, looking forward, it's 888 days. That's not a coincidence. That's like your steps to the rebirth. Anyways, I gotta go. God bless you all.